Hello, my name's Jeremy Wright, and I think I'd have to accept that as a Member of Parliament for 16 years, as a minister in the governments of David Cameron and then Theresa May, and as a candidate in 5 general elections, I have what you might call an insider's view of our democratic system. But I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about, among all the many things you'll be considering as features of a good democratic system, what I think are particularly important features. And really, there are 2 for me. First of all, that in the end, ultimately, power lies in the hands of the people, of the electorate. And secondly, that our democratic system produces a government that can do what it says it will do. Now, our democracy is not perfect. I don't think any system of human government is likely to be. But I think it does pretty well in meeting those tests. And I want to just briefly explain why. Now, the first thing any democracy needs is free and fair elections, so the electorate can make a genuine choice. And I think certainly by international comparisons, we do pretty well in that regard. But that choice needs to be an informed choice, and we achieve that by parties setting out in manifestos what they will do so that you know what you're getting if you vote for them. But the system also needs to be capable of producing governments capable of implementing that manifesto with a majority in the House of Commons to allow them to do so. And again, our elections generally deliver that. But it also means that parties have to have a way of ensuring that their members of parliament keep to the promises that they've made. Now, government whips, and I used to be one, get a bad reputation. But the truth is that without them, it would be really hard to make sure that individual members of parliament keep to the promises they made in their manifestos. Now, of course, not every political issue features in a manifesto, and in the ones that don't, members of parliament have to use their best judgment and then be assessed by the electorate as to how well they've done so at election time. And there are also political issues that are just so big that they need handling in a different way. Issues that are not just about how the government uses the power the electorate has given it, or rather lent it at an election, but really about the nature of that power itself, issues of sovereignty. And it seems to me that both government and parliament should not decide to change that sovereignty without specifically asking permission from the people first. And that's really what we use referendums for. Whether they're about dividing our sovereignty when considering the independence of different parts of the UK, for example, or about pooling our sovereignty in institutions like the European Union. But if we don't want to have a few referendums every week, and I certainly don't recommend it, then inevitably the government will be making decisions on our behalf on a regular basis. And ultimately, if we don't like the way they do it, we can get rid of them at the next election. But between elections, governments don't and shouldn't exercise power without restriction. And I want to identify a couple. So there is, of course, the scrutiny of the press. And in this country, we're lucky to have a robust, independent, dynamic press that holds politicians to account. Beyond that, there's public pressure from individual constituents or from organized campaign groups, and the internet has made them ever more effective in doing what they do. And also, as you'd expect a former Attorney General to say, we have, importantly, the rule of law. The courts are there to make sure that governments do not behave unreasonably and that they do not break their own laws. But in the end, I come back to the 2 fundamental things that I think really matter. First, that ultimate power lies in the hands of the people, and that means that decisions should be taken by the institutions the people control. In the end, you can get rid of governments and parliaments you don't like. You can't do that with judges or with journalists. And the second principle, that the system has to allow governments to do what they say they will, which doesn't mean everybody gets what they want. It doesn't mean that everybody agrees on what should be done. And I suspect the next few weeks will make that clear to you if you didn't think it already. But don't underestimate the value of a government with a majority of elected members of parliament and the power to make change. You're being asked to think about how to design a better democracy, a democracy that works well. And democracy shouldn't be seen as an academic exercise. It should be a system of government that preserve, protect, and enhance the lives of of its citizens. And a system of democracy that looks great on paper and works well in theory doesn't protect or enhance anyone's rights, doesn't make anyone better off, and doesn't make our country stronger in any way unless it works in practice. And it's that I invite you to consider as you have what I know will be fascinating conversations about the way in which our democracy can change. And of course it can change and improve, but let's not lose sight of how to make it work, not just look good on paper. Thank you very much.